violent hate groups in the world. He left the group at age 22. He began to rebuild his life. Since then, he has gone on to fight against hate.
His latest book is called White American Youth. Images from the book will be seen as we talk to him. But nice to meet you, Christian. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Robin.
How did you get involved in this in such a young age? You grew up in South suburban Oak Forest.
Yeah, growing up, and this is what radicalizes most young people, is a broken search for identity, community, and purpose. Ideology and dogma are not what radicalizes most people, and I've learned that over the last 22 years of helping people disengage.
Meaning you met someone who you were a lost kid and they said, come with me?
Yeah, I was bullied, I was marginalized, I felt disenchanted, and a man stepped in front of me who was twice my age. I was standing in an alley one day smoking a joint, and he pulled a joint from my mouth and he said, "That's what the Jews and the communists want you to do to keep you docile." I didn't know what a communist or a Jew or even what the word docile meant at 14. But it was the first lifeline that I got from somebody who wanted to draw me in and give me acceptance.
I want to go to a photo of you and Joan Jett, because you were into the punk music scene. She met you and you opened for her, and she writes the foreword to your book and says you were this dark, she sensed that you were this dark teenager searching for acceptance. But a lot of teenagers are in that space and time, and they're not going into the skinhead movement.
Right.
Why was it different for you?
Well,
what made you so dark and lost?
I was angry. I was angry for feeling abandoned by my parents. Even though my parents didn't abandon me, at 14 I felt that way. My parents are actually Italian immigrants who came to the US in the mid-60s, and they were often the victims of prejudice, so racism wasn't a part of my DNA. But I was really angry at feeling alone and marginalized, and what they said, the rhetoric, somehow related to me at that time because I wanted to associate with the angriest people I could find. And Joan Jett, after I left the movement, about a year after, I was going through a major depression where I was struggling to even want to wake up in the morning. And she was one of the first people to recognize that, not even knowing my past, and kind of took me under her wing, and I've stayed friends with her for years.
What we see so many people that talk this hatred. What turned you around? What brought you out of it?
I always had doubts, but I was able to push those doubts down because I was addicted to the perceived power of it. But ultimately, what brought me out was receiving compassion from the people that I least deserved it from when I least deserved it. People saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself.
Meaning someone reached out to you and said, there's a better way? Just another who?
It was African Americans, it was Jewish people, it was gay people, it was the people that I thought I hated that actually said, you know what, we don't think that this is really who you are. And even though I was a leader, even though I was violent, and even though I had a band that sold records promoting violence, they still took the time to show me compassion and empathy. And then I found out that I had more in common with them than I did with the people that I was surrounding myself with.
So in the book, you take us inside one of these meetings, and you're looking around, and all these skinhead guys are drinking and getting in fights with each other.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, this doesn't make sense. Aren't we on the same side? Was that any kind of turning point for you, or why didn't that, hold up the mirror and say, these guys are idiots?
I thought that a lot during those days, but I always thought that, I could be a leader and bring them out of that. I was so addicted to the perceived power of it, rather than the racism, because again, that wasn't something that I was raised with. But yeah, no, it was a very confusing time, and I worry that young people today are starting to see this as more of a social movement. We have marginalized young people, people who are socially awkward, who are now gravitating to this movement because it does offer a sense of identity and community and purpose, and that's dangerous.
So what do you tell kids that you see, or do you reach out to young people?
I do. Yeah, I've helped over 100 people disengage from the far right, and I don't call it the white nationalist movement because I know that that is a word that they made up to make themselves seem less hateful. So I refer to them as white supremacists and neo-Nazis, which is exactly what the alt-right and white nationalists are. But I don't, I listen more than I talk, and I listen for what I call potholes, the things that appeared in their life that may have deviated their path. And then I start to fill those potholes. I work to make people more resilient. I will find job training or tattoo removal or mental health counseling or an education, because I know that when people feel more resilient, they have less of a reason to blame other people. And then I also introduce them to people that they think they hate.
I'm trying to remember, I think it was Charlottesville, Virginia, and I was kind of surprised to see the marchers, the white supremacist marchers in that, were like wearing polo shirts.
Right.
And wearing glasses. They looked like they were from the HR department at the accounting firm.
Right.
How do you explain that? You kind of get the skinhead thing, all right, they're lost kids. How do you explain what you saw in Charlottesville?
I can explain it because I helped create it. 30 years ago, we had a very concerted strategy that recognized that the shaved heads and the tattoos and the swastika flags were turning away the average American white racist that we wanted to recruit. So we said we need to grow our hair out, we need to get rid of the tattoos, we need to trade in the boots for suits, go to college campuses, recruit, go to the military, and even get jobs in law enforcement, because we knew then that we needed to look, sound, and act like the people we wanted to recruit.
What do you see? We're looking at some of those pictures. What do you feel when you see those pictures of yourself now? I mean, it's got to seem like a lifetime ago, but how does that make you feel when you see yourself in some of these images?
Well, I feel detached from those images, but when I look at them, I look at the hundreds of young people that I talk to every day who are victims of this ideology because they really are brought in and they're duped by it and they're fooled by the conspiracy theories and the fake news.
When the president comes out, and I think it was after Charlottesville, and talks about, well, people on both sides were not behaving well. There are people watching who don't consider themselves racist, who agree with the president in that. Do you agree with the president in that framing?
I think the president was wrong in that statement. I don't think he had a clear picture of what was happening. That was not a free speech rally. That was not a protest against Confederate monuments. These groups, and I know because I was a part of it, go to very progressive liberal areas on purpose, and Charlottesville is very much a progressive town, to stir up the pot, which is why they marched in Skokie back in in Chicago, and why they've been to Berkeley. They go there intentionally to stir the pot.
What happened to your mentor? What's his name? Mark Martel? Was it Clark Martel?
Yeah.
Is he still alive? He's out of prison, right?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I've tried to look. As I was writing my book, I wanted to get dates correct, and I pulled a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests, and I've turned up with nothing.
What about some of the people that you were doing this with at the time? Are they angry with you? Have you reached out to them, and have they turned a corner too?
Many of them have left on their own. They either grew out of it, or they met a woman, got married, had children, and their priorities changed, and that's what happened to me too. I had to question my identity. Was I a hate monger, or was I a father, and did I want to raise my children in a good place, or bring them down with me into this darkness that I was in?
People want to reach out to you. Do you have a website or something, or a way for people to contact you?
Yeah, they can go to christianpicciolini.com, P-I-C-C.
Yeah, common spelling?
Yeah.
P-I-C-C.
P-I-C-C-I-O-L-I-N-I, first name Christian.com.
Okay. All right, thanks for being here.
Great to meet you.